Right. Good afternoon. Today is January 1st, 2021, and I would like to just start this broadcast on GABA TV by saying Happy New Year to our supporters and our network around the world. Yes, we made it out of 2020 alive. In 2021, we start a brand new season of opportunities, of prosperity and promise, not just to your business professionally, but also to your personal lifestyles as well. I am your host, the president and the CEO of the Global African Business Association, Akindele Akinyemi. And one huge milestone was that had just took place today. And you've been hearing me on this broadcast to discuss the African Continental Free Trade Area. Well, officially that was launched today. And we are so proud and so happy for our brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa to engage for the first time in intra-trade with nations that will be able to rebuild economies, rebuild lifestyles, and pull people out of poverty. That is absolutely enormous, and it's very important to understand. The African Continental Free Trade Area is ratified by 55 nations, almost 50. I'm gonna say 50 something, because I think a couple of countries are still not ratified. But what does that mean for us? So you have this intertrade going on the continent of Africa. Well, what does that mean for us in the diaspora? I'm here in the great state of Michigan. Others may be in the great state of Ohio or Georgia or Nebraska or California or New York or Texas. What does that mean for us? Well, it means a lot. You see, what we have to start understanding is the power that we have here in North America in the Western Hemisphere here. We have to understand that we too play a role in the African Continental Free Trade Area. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that in order to rebuild, and you've heard me on this broadcast say many times, in order for us to rebuild our local communities, our local urban communities here in the United States, that we have to start engaging in trade, imports, and exports with the continent of Africa. See, let's take this scenario. Let's say, for instance, I have a manufacturing business here in the United States. Let's say, for instance, my manufacturing business is in Inkster or Romulus or Highland Park or Ypsilanti. And I decide, and my manufacturing business is in textiles. I create textiles and clothing out of hemp or other products. And let's say, for instance, I wanted to take my manufacturing or expand my manufacturing on the continent of Africa in a place like Ghana or Rwanda or Kenya or Nigeria. I would establish myself on the continent, right? Establish my business and launch my manufacturing component on the continent of Africa. Now I can participate as a small or medium-sized enterprise. I can participate in producing garments that we can trade with one another. So say for instance that manufacturing plant I decide sets up in Ghana, and I want to do direct trading with Kenya. Now I can do that. Before this African Continental Free Trade Area component, you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that. See, this African Continental Free Trade Area is the largest free trade agreement in the world. It's much larger than the World Trade Organization. It's much larger than the USMCA. This is a big deal, folks. And African Americans and Caribbean nationals have a right to participate in the African Continental Free Trade Area. At the same token, we may have businesses on the continent that's participating in the AfCFTA, right? That may want to do business here in the United States to help reboost the tax base. So what they do, their companies established here as an LLC or incorporation, right? They expand here. They hire people here, right? Americans here and depending on what type of business, if it's franchised or otherwise, you could teach young African American entrepreneurs right here in the United States. Now, what happens? We increase jobs, we increase a tax base, and more importantly, we increase the value of the community in which we're trying to build. Do you see where I'm going with this? See here, we have to be strategic as a local urban community. These cities have to be very strategic in their approach to how they penetrate the market in Africa. That's why I always say, our cities here, these small cities like Benton Harbor, Inkster, Romulus, Highland Park, right here in Michigan. This is why I always tell them, use your city as a municipal incubator to position yourself with the global market. And all you have to do, we don't have to go to Congress to do that. That's just a matter of talking to people on your planning commission, in your downtown development authority, in your city's economic development corporation, or your city council, or your mayor. It's just a matter of bringing the stakeholders with the data to make it work. Can you imagine that young brother or young sister out there in Romulus that have a small, medium-sized enterprise that can establish themselves on the continent to participate in the African Continental Free Trade Area? Can you imagine that franchise or that business in Nigeria bring their franchise or their brand here to the United States and help reboost values in Highland Park, Michigan, Mount Clemens, Flint, Saginaw, Inkster, Detroit? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the importance of courting investors from the continent who's already moving trade with other nations, and they're utilizing the EB-5 visa, which is an investor visa that's sponsored by our immigration services here, the USCIS here in the United States, where they can invest, right, a certain amount of money, mostly a minimum of $900,000 in a low-income community, right, to build hotels, to build schools, to rebuild housing developments in cash-strapped cities. And they hire a minimum of 10 U.S. workers, right? And guess what? As a trade-off, they bring value to our community, and they receive a permanent residency card for themselves, their spouses, and children under 21. Now, that's a good trade-off, right? But that company started on the continent, and they're doing trade with each other. So what I'm doing here, ladies and gentlemen, is really giving you a synopsis as to why we are excited about the African Continental Free Trade Area. We're talking about moving people out of poverty. We're talking about jobs being created. We're talking about skilled trades. We're talking about potential manufacturing, right? And I know some of you who are skeptical about this Continental Free Trade Area feel that manufacturing should have been established first. And I agree that we should have always had manufacturing wide scale first, and not don't let other people like China come in there and kind of dictate what they should do in these special economic zones. I get all that. That's a conversation for another day. But listen, how many of us who are criticizing that have talked to our African and Caribbean brothers and sisters in the diaspora to bring manufacturing to the continent of Africa, to hire people, to train skilled trades, and bring new jobs to the community in which they reside over in Africa to participate in the Continental Free Trade Area? That's where I'm going with this. See, this decade, we have to start talking in the framework, and you've heard me say this on this broadcast, in the framework of the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the 21st century framework. You've heard me discuss that many times. And in each passing day, what I'm discussing keep coming to light. Economics is the key factor of uplifting people out of poverty. Economics is the key factor of linking the wealth between the United States and the continent of Africa. Economics, when we have an economic policy, right, that's rooted in immigration, that's rooted in technology, it's rooted in human capital. That's when things change, and that's when people will listen. Immigration plays a big role in the African Continental Free Trade Area. That's another angle we don't talk about too much, especially here in the U.S. How does immigration play a role? I talked about EB-5. Well, think about it. Most folks from Africa that come to the United States, most of the time come here because they're looking for a better living situation for themselves and their family. A lot of them come here from school. And we could be training young Africans who are here on an F1 visa, on a student visa. They're going to school for nursing. They're going to school for cybersecurity. They're going to school for different types of skilled tech trades here in the 21st century. Most of them do not want to work for someone. They want to work for themselves. They can establish a business right here in the United States in a community that needs help. They can hire people from the community that needs help and train them. And then guess what? They can go back home and set up the same exact type of thing that will help deliver trade and infrastructure within the context of the Continental Free Trade Area over there. So you have to look at immigration from a different angle, from an economic perspective. I know most of us like to talk about immigration from a social justice perspective, but we have to look at it from an economic policy perspective if people are going to take us seriously and nations are going to take us seriously anywhere on the planet Earth. You have this thing called e-commerce. E-commerce play a big role in the African Continental Free Trade Area. You as an African American can have an e-commerce business set up here. You could have manufacturing set up in the country of your choice that's participating in the Continental Free Trade Area, right? You can have, so let's say for instance, you live in Romulus, or let's say for instance, you live in Ecommerce or River Rouge, Michigan, and you can set up an e-commerce business, but you're manufacturing, you're developing the process overseas. And now you're trading, now you're as a participant, you're trading and utilizing the system there with other nations with your product that you're designing right here in the United States. Make sense? You see where I'm going with this? That's called linking the wealth. And that's what we talk about in the Global African Business Association, is linking the wealth. Listen, within the African Continental Free Trade Area, it's not just about trade. Hey, they need people who are tax experts. They're going to need people who understand international law. They're going to need people who understand international real estate. They're going to need people who are health professionals. They're going to need manufacturing of medical equipment. If a lot of these systems are going to be on blockchain. A lot of these things, we need information security analysts and cybersecurity and things of that nature. So listen, this is a big, big deal for not just us on the continent of Africa, but us in the African diaspora. We have a right to participate in this historic event that just launched today. And I want you to understand that we here at the Global African Business Association, through our network, we'd be glad to assist and help you navigate, also educate you more about the African Continental Free Trade Area. We have all these experts in our network that can discuss that with you and really make some things happen. But I always tell my stakeholders here and locally here in Michigan that you have to engage economically with the continent if you're serious about revitalizing your community at large. Because right now, globalization, I don't give a damn if what people are saying in the public. Most people say things in the public because of fear. The globalization process is real, and the globalization process is going on right now, from technology to infrastructure. I want to talk a little bit about media. So as you know, cable is now obsolete. and streaming television is it. So what needs to happen in many nations in Africa is to improve the broadband system and improve the internet system there so that we can get better services through streaming technology and that we can get the information to the people quickly. Here in the United States, let's say, for instance, you have a multimedia streaming television network. Like, I know some folks who have that. And how can they play a role in the African Continental Free Trade Area? Well, the biggest thing that we have to do is mass education. And just like any type of media system, whether they're telling the truth or not, it's all about education. We need our brothers and sisters who are on these platforms, these media platforms, to start discussing the need of how they can play a role in the African Continental Free Trade Area. And the way you do that is to develop content to educate people about why an African American business or a Caribbean business is vital to the African Continental Free Trade Area. That's very, very important. So you develop the content and you execute the content of education first so people can feel comfortable about these things. Here's where I'm going with. Here's an example. Most science fiction movies that you'll run across on the big screen, right, or Netflix, a lot of science fiction movies is really trying to indoctrinate people to think and think and condition their ways in a certain manner. So I always tell folks, basically, if they're showing you on the big screen, they have been working on this for the last 7 years, and they're ready to bring this out in the public. It's the same thing with your network. You have to be able to talk about what I'm talking about and bring in the value of why your business can play a big role in the African Continental Free Trade Area by educating people first. And then at the same token, we may have businesses on the continent. I think every streaming business, streaming television network should at some point partner with a chamber of commerce on the continent of Africa and partner with a chamber of commerce within that respective nation where those businesses over there can receive if they're looking to expand here in the U.S., they can use your services to expand here into the U.S. by showcasing what they have to offer as a small, medium-sized enterprise to bring to the U.S. so people over here can be educated about what type of business and economy is going on in Africa. And at the same token, people in Africa can understand what we can bring to the table as a stakeholder in the African Continental Free Trade Area. I think that's the most basic thing we can do first, and create an educational ecosystem of empowerment through our streaming networks, our television networks, and distribute those out so that way we can make a strong impact at the table all together, all within 1 year. And so we have a lot of work to do. Time is short. And the reality is 2021 is our year of prosperity. 2020 this is where the empire strikes back. 2020 with this COVID-19 got us. But 2021, the empire strikes back, and we will strike back hard, and we will win. So I want folks to understand the value and the importance of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Why we're so excited, just as a Global African Business Association and our network, we're very excited and very ready to roll up our sleeves and do our part in educating our people about why this is necessary. Check out the website, GABAnetwork.com, GABANETWORK.com.